it's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
It's a film about people who, contrary to any notion of self-preservation, run towards tornadoes. It might not sound like a recipe for a film with a happy ending, but here we have a film with an unusual premise that also became a summer blockbuster.
You can't explain it. You can't predict it.
Sexy meteorologists with a death wish abound in Twister.
Cow. I gotta go, Julia. We got cows.
Twister is a 1996 film about stormchasers, meteorologists and weathermen, a criminally underrepresented profession for protagonists of summer action films.
I said weatherman, I think it's great.
Oh, you had that tone.
There was no tone. If you have a problem being a weatherman.
I don't have a problem being a weatherman.
I mean, how often do you see some professions represented in action movies? What if Predator wasn't about a group of soldiers hunted by an alien hunter, but was instead about dentists lost in the jungle hunted by one alien orthodontist? What if Armageddon wasn't about roughnecks sent into space to destroy an asteroid, but instead they were, baristas? What if a movie starring Tom Cruise wasn't about Tom Cruise?
Okay, guys, let's go get it.
Twister begins with a flashback to a tornado, where young Jo watches her father being carried off by a twister.
Hey, Bill. I'm happy you found us.
Years later, she bears a remarkable resemblance to sitcom star Helen Hunt, where she's now a meteorologist who's making excuses as to why she hasn't signed the papers to finalise her divorce to Bill, who himself bears a remarkable resemblance to Bill Paxton. But crucially not Bill Pullman.
Oh, man, don't start that shit.
Paxton was in Twister, Pullman was in Independence Day of the same year. I mention this mainly for my own records, but 1996 was the year of the box office double bill.
You've never seen him miss this house and miss that house and come after you.
In this film, Bill wants to get his divorce finalised so he can marry Melissa, whose business card says reproductive therapist, but behind her back, her clients call her Madam Xerox or the copy and paste lady.
All right, she didn't only marry your penis.
I had not seen Twister before, but I'm going to take a stab in the dark and suggest that perhaps it might be worth waiting to see if Bill and Jo don't somehow get together at the end of the film. I don't know, I just have a feeling about those two crazy kids.
She's nice.
Ha!
Uh-oh, she's not nice.
I know what you meant.
You do.
Yes.
The actual plot part of Twister is relatively simple. Jo and Bill want to build a better early warning system for tornadoes, and they have the idea to send up dozens of tiny sensors into the heart of a tornado so they can track what's going on. The hard part is to get the sensors into the path of the tornado without themselves getting sucked up into it, which I can tell you from experience is a lousy way to end a summer picnic.
These sensors go up the funnel and radio back information about the internal structure, wind velocities, flow asymmetries. We could learn more in 30 seconds than I have in the past 30 years.
All through the film, we see Bill and Jo drive a truck where they hope the tornado will hit, and for whatever reason aren't able to make things work. I think I see their fundamental problem. The probes are sitting in a giant bucket called Dorothy, and it's sitting on the back of a pickup truck, and then they have to get to the right spot and unload this thing. When, the thought occurs that you could have popped off to a giant hardware retailer and hired a trailer under a fake name, put Dorothy on the trailer, and then just unhitch the trailer in far less time, but it also would have meant a much, much shorter film. Now, I'm not advocating for hiring trailers under a fake name from anywhere, not at least in any way where I'm admitting liability. I've only given a fake name for hiring a trailer 4, maybe 5 times tops, and I felt really bad about it. And most of those times, those trailers were not used in the service of launching electronic devices into the heart of a tornado.
As long as you're happy.
Thank you. I am happy.
Jo and Bill have a coterie of hangers-on, but as it's Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton's name on the poster, most of the supporting cast have a line or two at best in which to express their personality. There's Alan Ruck and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and a bunch of other semi-familiar types who are all larger than life when trying to create a character out of nothing.
He's right, if you're gonna get hit, it's the safest orifice.
Yeah, I like to get hit by lightning once, see what it's like.
These characters are more or less stage directions for Bill and Jo.
Billy, is the extreme.
They don't actually exist outside of their relationships to Bill and or Joe.
Hey, Joe and Bill, check out that sky!
Joe's Aunt Meg feeds the group, where of course all of the support staff just talk about how awesome Bill and Joe are, while Bill's fiancée Melissa is coming to realise the same thing as the audience, that there would definitely be no role for Jamie Gertz in any potential late 90s sequel called Twister 2 Let's Twist Again. Not even a cameo or a damn flashback. The thing about Twister is that it takes place over a very short time of a few days, where there's a major weather event, every 15 minutes. Increasingly deadly tornadoes that the group survive, including one that flattens Aunt Meg's house. But Helen Hunt's arty aunt had created sculptures that give her an idea, put tiny blades on the sensors. But there's also the evil storm chaser Jonas.
He's in it for the money, not the science.
Who is backed by corporate sponsorship. He has a fleet of brand new trucks and a staff of toadying assistants.
Oh, and by the way, I really enjoy your weather reports.
Jonas is also taking credit for Bill and Joe's idea, and then shadows them for most of the film, being nasty, with Carrie Elwes doing his damnedest to be an over-competitive villain.
The days of sniffing the dirt are over.
It's also no surprise that Jonas ends up exploding in a tornado. Bill and Joe, lo and behold, manage to find a tornado, and it's a really, really big one. They launch the sensors but get caught up in the storm and only survive by hanging onto some pipes, which happens more often than you would think. The twist being, the separated couple will get back together. What a twist. And with that, Twister ends.
Honey, is everything okay?
It's okay, everything's fine.
Are you sure?
Fine. Yeah, everything's okay.
Okay.
Twister was a film that sort of crept up on you, in that it felt like it came out of nowhere and then, like Jonas, blew up to become one of the biggest films of 1996.
Joe, Bill, did you see that explosion?
The film's inspiration was a video made by effects company ILM about what they could do with computer graphics. After ILM's revolutionary triumph with Jurassic Park, that film's director Steven Spielberg was intrigued by the idea of a film about a tornado, and at one point was thinking of directing it. Though Twister would eventually be helmed by Jan De Bont, whose first film, Speed, had impressed many. Twister was written by, of all people, Michael Crichton, creator of Westworld, Jurassic Park and ER and others, along with his then wife Anne-Marie Martin, who, as an actor, you may know from Sledgehammer, Days of Our Lives, or various guest appearances on television, and of course, H.G. Wells' The Shape of Things to Come. The plot to Twister mixes Stormchasers with a rom-com, how the estranged couple get back together while we wait with bated breath for how badly wrecked Bill's fancy new pickup will be by the end of the film.
We got full coverage on that truck?
Liability only.
Tornadoes, by and large, didn't really appear in films all that often. They're such a force of chaos, it's hard to use them effectively in a movie other than as something that randomly leaves a trail of destruction wherever it goes. Much like Auntie Beryl when she competed in the Tour de France. The Wizard of Oz used them as a means to transport Dorothy, and Man of Steel used a tornado to dramatic effect and comedic effect all at the same time.
He strolls up to the Twister and he says, "Have a drink." And he chucks the bottle into the Twister and it never hits the ground.
Tornadoes happen everywhere, but the most devastating seem to occur in a band across the US called Tornado Alley. What a coincidence, just bought a house there. Anyway, their destructive power can lay waste to structures in seconds and cause untold misery to thousands. Shit, we're in escrow. Anyway, on the other hand, if you live somewhere unaffected by tornadoes, they are frickin' cool. There are around 1,000 tornadoes across the US each year, and in the case of this movie, we see about 900 of them.
It's the biggest series of storms in 12 years, one lined up right after another. NSSL says they've never seen anything like it.
Oklahoma's being systematically flattened over the course of this movie.
This is what they do, they live for this.
Tornadoes on the scale as shown in Twister would not have really been possible without computer graphics, where organic elements like fire, wind, water and smoke had traditionally been some of the hardest things to render well in a computer. The elements are not often created in a way where they are defined models, like say a battle droid or a dinosaur, but they are usually a series of particle effects systems that interact with each other with realistic physics, weight, gravity, etc. But this is also a film with a shit ton of practical effects. Rain, wind, houses being destroyed, trucks being wrecked, but only a few trailers that were rented under a false name being destroyed.
What now? I have no idea.
The effects in Twister were a major draw for audiences, but even decades later, they have mostly held up well. There are a few shots here and there, particularly towards the end of the film where all of the drama is ramping up towards a major climax, where the effects become a little bit more obvious. But this is still a fairly impressive film. Before now, I had never actually sat down and watched Twister, mainly because the premise sounded so silly to me.
I don't know, maybe the whole thing's too light.
But having finally watched it, I was blown away by it. The characters other than Bill and Joe are quite hyper, but not in a Michael Bay movie level of annoying sort of way. Twister is solid fun. Any bits that are annoying are, like this chord, minor. Is Twister an actual good movie? Well, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Don't even think about it.
Also blowing in the wind, Jonas, just before he explodes.
No way.
It's a film about, well, weather scientists and meteorologists, and so weather terms are thrown around like a pop quiz at a meteorology lecture.
It was windy.
Melissa's main story function, outside of keeping Bill and Joe apart, is so that the various weathermen can explain to a layperson, including the audience, all these weird weather terms.
We got hail. We got an F3 tube sitting there on the ground, and she's a beauty. Woohoo!
Twister isn't a disaster movie per se, though it has all of the cool destruction you'd expect of a disaster movie. In some ways, it's more of an 80s sports movie with likeable underdogs trying to beat the nasty but well-resourced douchebag.
It's the wonder of nature, baby!
In a disaster film, people usually try to get out of the danger zone. These blind fools head straight for it, with no one really cognizant of the danger they're heading into. They seem quite surprised when a truck or a tree or a girder hits them and their truck is wrecked or it explodes. It's the darndest thing. In the 50s, science fiction movies promised that there would be flying cars in the future. 40 years later, the best we got was flying cows.
Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
Twister's shoot wasn't an easy experience, with Jan De Bont, a former cinematographer, not particularly getting along well with the film's camera team, who left the production to be replaced by another camera team, only to have the second director of photography injured and the director finishing out the film by overseeing the cameras as well. Irony of ironies, the weather was variable, either being crappy or really nice, which then led to ILM having to try and match it by turning sunny skies into grey skies, which does actually sound like every conversation with my mate Phil ever since he started his own podcast.
An ordinary person spends his life avoiding tense situations. Reefer man spends his life getting into tense situations.
Twister saw Universal and Warner Brothers splitting distribution rights, which worked out quite well for both of them. Twister opened in May of '96 and had good legs across that summer, eventually becoming the second biggest release of 1996, behind The Other Bill in Independence Day. It was a phenomenon that is still a fun and entertaining movie. And look, I can't find anything majorly negative about it. It was just put together that well.
Hey, are you guys gonna wrap this up pretty soon?
However, it was a one and done deal. Until nearly 30 years later, when a standalone sequel was released in 2024 called Twisters, which I'm guessing there are more Twisters in Twisters than Twisters were in Twister. Either that or I've misunderstood, and Twisters is about a bunch of kids playing Twister for 90 minutes.
Son of a bitch.
Twister is a fun time, just so long as you're not in imminent danger of being flattened by the real thing.
This is a tissue of lies. See, there was another Bill, an evil Bill, and I killed him.
If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Can I drive?
No!
Then would you?
Whoa!